Hello there, well, baseball fans, not just White Sox fans this time, because we're just going to be talking about the Hall of Fame, the recent Hall of Fame voting in general. Of course, there's going to be a little extra attention given to White Sox players on board, but I just wanted to do a little bit of a reaction video because I thought there were some surprises on the ballot, or how the ballot turned out. Right off the top, David Ortiz, his first time on the ballot, he made it into the Hall of Fame. Congrats to him. I think it's well deserved. And just in general, in addition to having a really great career, he has continued to be a great ambassador for the sport. And even though this can't be quantified, this can't be factored into any voters' equation for like who gets a vote or who doesn't, something has to be said for people that go on and they continue to help grow the sport. And David Ortiz is one such person. He is a very likable, high energy, fun person. Like I said, that can't literally be part of what defines a Hall of Famer, but that is some additional frosting on the cake, if you will. And so he didn't get in by that much. He got more than the 75% needed. He only got 77.9%. So he barely got in, which I'm glad he did, because if he didn't, there would have been no Hall of Famers this year on this ballot. Of course, the Veterans Committee did already elect a number of players. Most importantly, most notably, as far as I'm concerned, Manny long overdue that he finally gets into the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, they both don't get in. Now, these guys, let's be honest, they're Hall of Famers. Yes, they did cheat, and I understood and I could see voters not wanting to vote for them for the first 9 years, but I thought maybe the punishment would be we'll make them wait till the 10th year and then we'll finally vote them in. They didn't miss by that much, 66 and 65%. I don't know how you can differentiate the two. I feel like if you're going to go for one, you're going to go for both. Or if you're not going to vote for one, you're not going to vote for either. But now it's going to be left up to some future Veterans Committee vote to see if they get in or not. I know the thing that's said over and over again is these guys were Hall of Famers before they did steroids, before they broke the rules. And I do think that's true, and I do think it's worth penalizing them as much as possible. But these guys were still Hall of Famers. They'll get in one day. I'm also not heartbroken that they're not in now, but it's also a black eye. The longer these guys stay not in the Hall of Fame and they continue to be this question mark lingering, that black eye for baseball continues to come back up in the general public, in mass media, of what do we do with these guys. It almost would be better for the sport just to induct them, to get it over with, and we don't have to have this conversation anymore, especially when you consider the leader most home runs is Barry Bonds, one of the greatest pitchers ever, Roger Clemens, and the guy with the most hits ever, Pete Rose, all people that are not in the Hall of Fame. Of course, we'll see Sammy Sosa later on this list, another guy with over 600 home runs. He didn't even really cheat by the way it's defined in the time that they played, which is what makes it really a gray area. Sammy Sosa is a guy with over 600 home runs. There should be, I think, some of those benchmarks that just make it automatic. You don't even have to vote. 3,000 hits, 500, 600 home runs, something like that. They just get in. They don't need to be voted on. Scott Rowland made up some good ground, but he missed it at 63%. I thought he would end up higher. Curt Schilling, now here's a guy that's the other way, where I thought he would have been lower. Curt Schilling is another great player. This was his last year on the ballot as well. Bonds, Clemens, Schilling, all their 10th and final year on the ballot. Curt Schilling is a mess individually as a person, but he was a great player for sure, but he said he didn't want to be voted in. So, hey, I feel like it's easy to honor his opinions and not vote him in. I can't believe 58.5% of voters still did vote for him. He will likely get in on a veterans ballot in the future. Todd Helton, 52%. Billy Wagner, 51%. Either side on that one. Helton, I thought, would have more. Wagner, I thought, would have less. They mate right in the middle. There'll be forces next year. Andrew Jones, 41%. He seemed to have been getting a lot more attention, a lot more positive attention in recent years, so it was a little bit surprising. He's still got some really hefty numbers right there. Gary Sheffield, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not into the gossipy stuff, whether it's Hollywood gossip. I don't know who's dating who. And when it comes to baseball, I'm a little bit hazy too. I think Gary Sheffield has some question marks around how legit his numbers are. Definitely a really good player. Is he a Hall of Famer? I guess time will tell on this one. Only about 40.5%. Alex Rodriguez, his first time on the ballot, coming in less than I thought he would be. Joe Posnanski, who is a Hall of Fame voter and, of course, accomplished writer, he made the point on Twitter recently that A-Rod came in. His first year on the ballot was at a lower percentage point than Bonds was, so it's going to be a long 10 years for him. I'm not so sure about that. I think A-Rod like Ortiz, is a good ambassador for the game. And unlike Bonds, A-Rod has gotten out there in the public eye, in the spotlight. Bonds has hidden in a big way. Yes, Bonds did do some coaching. So if you're in San Francisco, you probably did see him a bit more. But on the national stage, you don't really see him at all anymore. Alex Rodriguez is the opposite. He is out in public, out in front of the cameras, doing all sorts of different things on Shark Tank, on New Year's Rockin' Eve, whatever. He's out there. And I think that kind of stuff does help his case. Bailey, who runs Foolish Baseball and has a really great comedy parody account called Foolish Bailey, has a video that just came out today, coincidentally, that kind of makes fun of the point that I'm making right now. But I do think it's legit that it does matter. You know, these are voters. These are people that can be swayed, and as time goes by, maybe their once intense hatred of a person starts to cool as you get used to seeing him elsewhere, and suddenly you like him a bit more. Also, by the time he gets to year 10 and 9 years, the attitudes may have cooled a little bit. Some of the older writers may not be voting anymore, and there's younger people in that will purely look at the numbers and then make a decision based off of that. Time will tell on that one for sure. I'm surprised Jeff Kent didn't get a higher percentage yet, just under 33%. Now, he was another guy that was just not liked very much by the media, a hard to get along with person. I think he is going to be a guy that gets in time, but it's not going to be quick, apparently, for Jeff Kent. Manny Ramirez is a guy that was, so electric in the moment, but yeah, 29%. Lots of steroid allegations and I think some confirmations. I don't think he's going to get in. He's a guy that absolutely was a team leader when he was at his peak. Omar Vizquel. Here's another guy that got more votes than I thought he was going to get. It was at 24%, which was a huge dive compared to the previous year. And I hate that talking about baseball has to be talking about the crime blotter. And Omar Vizquel has some bad stuff connected to him now, whether it's spousal abuse or sexual assault. I cannot believe he got 24% of the votes, especially when you consider that stuff. But also, he was borderline at best to begin with. He's a guy that really never put up great numbers. He was considered a glove first fielder, and he did it for a very long time. And that has value. That matters. That counts. But I think he was barely a borderline case to begin with. And then you start to add this other nastiness to him. I can't believe anybody voted for him, let alone almost 24% of voters, especially when you get a handful of voters that just return blank ballots where they don't vote for anybody. It's such a weird process, the Hall of Fame voting is. And here we have Sammy Sosa getting just 18.5% of the votes on his last year on the ballot. Maybe he's going to get in one day by a Veterans Committee, but it might be in decades and decades, and I might not be alive to see it. It'll be interesting. It will really be interesting to see what his case is. Andy Pettitte, I was surprised at first to see how poorly he was tracking. Here he is around 10.5%. But really, the longevity, the elite longevity wasn't there. His playoff resume helps him a lot. Don't think he'll ever get in. Jimmy Rollins and Bobby Abreu both seem like guys that don't have a real chance to make it into the Hall of Fame. So these may have been some votes just to keep them on the ballot a little bit longer. So they will make it onto next year's ballot, but I don't think they're going to last on the ballot very long. I don't think they're getting in. And success, I can't believe it happened, to be honest with you. He was tracking so low for so long, but Mark Buehrle did hit 5.8%. You need to get at least 5% of the votes to be able to remain on the ballot for next year. So this is Mark Buehrle's second year. He will be back for year number 3. And with so many of these guys falling off the ballot, having their time expire, and of course Ortiz getting in, and we're still going to come up to the people that didn't get 5%, I think Buehrle stands a fairly good reason to get more votes next year. I do know there were a handful of voters also already that said if they had more votes to give, that they already used up their 10, they would have voted for Buehrle. That has come out publicly. I've said this before, I don't think Mark Buehrle is going to make it into the Hall of Fame on the sports writers ballot, but I think he will make it in on a Veterans Committee vote in the future, people that got to face him. He doesn't have those huge strikeout numbers, but nobody was more consistent than Mark Buehrle was while he was playing. And I think you have to be somebody that stood in the box to face him to really know that this guy is a Hall of Famer. But like I said, I'm really happy that he's going to be back next year for year number 3, and I think he's going to improve his numbers. Will it dive after that? Who's to say? But I look to see a build on that 5.8% next year. And Torrey Hunter was a name, I think, again, just people giving that courtesy vote because they want him to at least be on the ballot a second year. He's not a Hall of Famer. He was a really fun player to watch, one of the most exciting players to watch while he was at his peak. Definitely not a Hall of Famer. So here are the guys that did not make it. One of Torrey's longtime teammates, Joe Nathan, just 4.3. Tim Hudson, 3%. Tim Lincecum, 2.3. Ryan Howard, 2%. There's a guy who was just looked like a future Hall of Famer early in his career and then didn't quite work out for him. Mark Teixeira, just 1.5%. Justin Morneau, 1.3. Papelbon, 1.3. Prince Fielder, 0.5. Excited to see that AJ Pierzynski got 2 votes. That gives him a 0.5%. A guy who I don't think is a Hall of Famer, but you could really make an argument that he's doing in this era what catchers don't really do anymore. I think his nearest comparison would be Yadi Molina, who most people consider an obvious Hall of Famer, but Yadi somehow just was able to do it with more media attention on him, getting to a ton more All-Star games. But AJ Pierzynski was a very, very durable catcher that lasted a very long time. Probably not a Hall of Fame. I'm definitely not a Hall of Famer. We can see right here he's not even a second ballot guy. But yes, a tip of the hat to AJ Pierzynski. Congrats on those 2 votes. He did not get shut out like Carl Crawford and another former White Sox, Jake Peavy. I wanted to take a quick look at the ballot for next year. I've already made some predictions as we went through that last list, but here are some people that, and we don't know what the ballot is going to be. We will go through who all of the eligible people are. Some of them will be on the ballot, some won't. Just being on the ballot is a big honor to begin with. Maybe I'll make some predictions on that front as well. And let's see if there's any other first ballot Hall of Famers that we have to look forward to next voting season. And actually, I will organize it by WAR. So this might be cheating a little bit and make it a lot easier for me. Carlos Beltran by far has the highest WAR of any first time eligible Hall of Famers. He's got the same exact WAR as Scott Rowland as defined by Baseball Reference. Wow. At first blush, I really didn't think Carlos Beltran had a chance, but 2,700 hits, 400 home runs. He's definitely not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's a guy that will stick around. And then there's a big drop off to John Lackey at 37.3. Boy. So yeah, this is not going to be the most exciting next round of Hall of Fame voting, which again, people like to use their votes. Not everybody, unfortunately, but a lot of people like to use their votes. And that's why I think somebody like Mark Buehrle will get more Hall of Fame votes. I do think Scott Rowland will make it in next year, and I also think Todd Helton will make it in next year. I would have guessed Jeff Kent, but man, I can't believe he was only in the 30s, 32% last year, so he's not going to make it. But that's my prediction for next year. 2 Hall of Famers, they will be Scott Rowland and Todd Helton, which would have to be a big jump for Todd Helton, going from 52% to at least 75%. But let's just run down quickly the rest of the first ballot eligible first ballot guys. Jared Weaver with a WAR of 34.6, Jacoby Ellsbury, Johnny Peralta, Jason Worth, Matt Cain. We're down under 30 now. Matt Cain was at 29.1. JJ Hardy, Mike Napoli, Aaron Hill, K-Rod, R.A. Dickey, Bronson Arroyo, Eric Abar, Carlos Ruiz. Boy, a lot of these people will not even make it onto the ballot, I think. Andre Ethier, maybe this is the break off, because I could see Carlos Ruiz at least getting on the ballot, but not seriously. Sadly to say. Ubaldo Jimenez, Joaquin Benoit, Stephen Drew, Hudson Street, Adam Lind, Joe Blanton, Glenn Perkins, Jonathan Broxton, Chad Qualls, Jason Grilli. Look at a couple other ways to look at it. So if you organize by hits among first-time eligible batters, Beltran, like I said, over 2,700. The next highest hitter has 1,000 fewer hits, and that is Johnny Peralta. When looking at home runs, Carlos Beltran leads the way, 435. Next is Mike Napoli with 267. So really interesting to note, when looking at next year's ballot, the most wins total. Andy Pettitte is first, 256. Mark Buehrle is second, 214. So again, if there's going to be any starting pitching love, it's going to go to Pettitte and Buehrle. Next is John Lackey, who is at 188. So among all of the players that are first-time eligibles this coming year, which means at the end of this year, who will at least get enough votes to stay on the ballot for the next year? Carlos Beltran is an easy yes. Francisco Rodriguez is another easy yes for me. 437 total saves. That's great with just a 2.86 ERA. Is the best ERA plus of any of the Hall of Fame eligible players. Could John Lackey do it? Could Jared Weaver do it. I bet Jacoby Ellisbury will do it because he played major media markets, and that always helps. But yeah, certainly not a guy that is going to make it into the Hall of Fame overall, but he might get those kind of votes. Just to stick around a little bit, R.A. Dickey is a person that I think a lot of people like in general. I mean, I like him. He's never played for a Chicago team, but he is a great story and a great writer and a great friend to the media. That might help him stick around. He's not going to make it in, but I could see him sticking around on the ballot for a little bit, but that's about it. This is a very thin ballot for next year. Not nearly as much controversy. Will Alex Rodriguez get a big boost, or will he still hang around 34%? Probably only 2 Hall of Famers next year, no first ballot Hall of Famers. And again, I guess just to sign out, Scott Rowland and Todd Helton are my early guesses for who will make it into the Hall of Fame next year. Let me know what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, what you like to see. Do you just like to see the best of the best get in, even if that means nobody gets inducted one year? Or would you like the Hall to be a little bit more accessible and maybe every year there's at least 3 inductees? I think all of those opinions are valid because it's just for fun. At the end of the day, it's the Hall of Fame. People take it so seriously. And I did want to mention, I recently sat down with a baseball writer, a name that many of you might recognize. He is somebody that has voted for the Hall of Fame for over 20 years now. And so I got to talk to him about baseball in general, voting. Of course, I was campaigning for some White Sox players, but that video will come out in under a week. So just keep an eye out for that. I hope you guys have had a chance to go back and watch our August catch up of the Picks to Click contest. Lots of fun highlights in there. And of course, I tried something new with a video game simulation of rewriting White Sox history. That will be an ongoing series. I had fun putting it together, and I'm still percolating with a lot of different ideas of what I can do with it, how I can make it more fun and interesting and challenging. It's already pretty challenging. But anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying. I hope you guys are staying warm too, because again, as I'm writing this, it's in the negatives outside. This is a miserable winter, especially with no baseball to talk about. Hope you all are doing well, and I will see you soon.